Hello, everyone. Good morning. For those of you who were in the last session, good to see you again. For those of you who just arrived for this one, hello. I'm Brendan Vaughn, editor-in-chief of Fast Company. Really thrilled this morning to be here with Alex Gibney, founder and president of Jigsaw Productions. Alex is one of the most accomplished documentary filmmakers in the world. He has made, he actually couldn't remember how many films he's made when I just asked him backstage, but Going Clear about Scientology, the Oscar-winning Taxi to the Dark Side, Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room. The Theranos story, the story of Elizabeth Holmes, Steve Jobs, the man in the machine. I could go on. I mention those because those are business stories for the most part. Alex is an incredible business journalist in addition to the other work that he does. Wendy is the co-founder and president of Schmidt Family Foundation, the Schmidt Ocean Institute. She began her career as a journalist, San Francisco Chronicle, among other places. In her words, just backstage to me, explaining to people back in the 80s why computers were important for people other than engineers. So she is a philanthropist. She focuses on climate change, food systems, ocean health, other environmental issues. And as of about 6 months ago-ish, something like that, earlier this year, she's the majority owner of Jigsaw Productions, went into business with Alex. So let's start with a question. How did you meet and start working together? Wendy, let's start with you.
We met each other about a year ago. August 4th, I looked it up. We had lunch. You flew to Nantucket from Maine, and we started having a conversation. And we're still having that conversation. We found a lot of funny overlaps that felt kind of like kismet, like Summit, New Jersey, where I went to school, where Alex lived.
Okay.
I met somebody in June in Nantucket at a film festival where you were giving a screenwriters award. She's one of your best friends from college. Her name is Wendy.
Wendy Schmidt.
She married a guy called Schmidt, so you got two of us. There's just a lot of weird coincidences.
Yeah.
But we're still having that conversation. We're hiring our executives on the West Coast, and we're building a slate for Jigsaw 2.0. And it is my great privilege and delight to be able to support the work that Alex does, that he's always done, that we need more than ever today, let's be honest. He does it better than almost anyone in the world, maybe better than anyone in the world, and that's to tell the truth. And whether that's telling truth to power or following the money or celebrating a cultural icon, right? Or teaching people about things they've never seen before. There's such a role for what he's doing right now. And I'm just really happy to be supporting it and expanding it at a really critical time.
This may step on a later question I have, but since you just kind of teed this up really nicely, Wendy, Alex, what are the reasons, business reasons, that you needed a partner like Wendy these days?
Well, I mean, we're in troubled waters right now, particularly for documentary, though I should add that, Jigsaw is, had gotten involved in scripted projects before, and we've just recently hired a very veteran scripted executive. So we're in both scripted and non-scripted. But I think also to be able to seek out opportunities when they emerge, particularly to solve this problem of distribution, that Wendy and I are fully committed to, because we believe that at this moment in time, with growing media consolidation, what's ending up happening is actually a wall is being built between independent creators and audiences who want to see that material, but there is a kind of algorithmic twisting of content in a way that I think is interfering with that exchange between creators and viewers, and so we're trying to solve that problem. But also we're able, thanks to Wendy, to invest in projects, to not just mine, but many other people, in terms of interesting voices tackling important subjects that otherwise might not see the light of day.
Yep. I'd love to get into some of the more nitty-gritty of the distribution landscape a little bit later in the conversation. Before we do that, though, I'll ask another one here for you, Wendy, which is, there's a million stories that could be told. The question is which stories should be told, and how do you think about that as you initially made the decision to invest in Alex's company, but also as you all consider the projects that you're doing. And if you could add, I know it's a lot into one question here, but some of your interests philanthropically are not all that well represented in Alex's films so far on the climate side, things like that. How are you planning to bring that into the mix?
Well, we've been looking to invest in some kind of production company for a while to amplify the impact of the work we do in philanthropy. And as you say, there are so many issues that are really of critical importance to human life right now that are not represented well in any films. We have an opportunity to help educate people and to help bring voices into our public arena that are not heard from. And we've encountered these people for the last 20 years in our philanthropy, and there's a way to give them a voice in film. Now, of course, given the situation we live in today, the headwinds against the work we're doing are so strong in every dimension. I think people are freaked out. I think people are anxious. I know that we feel that our work is more important than ever because of the communities we serve. Every day you wake up to environmental dysregulation. You wake up to stories about the disruption of immigrant families and the cruel way that migrant workers are being treated in communities where farming communities need these people. The blatant assault on human rights. We have so many issues right now that are so important, as well as we mentioned the ocean and the existential issues of life on Earth and how do we reconnect. I keep hearing from people like my daughter how young people want more than anything authenticity and social connection. There's something in the fabric of our world that's broken. Yeah. And film, as Robert Redford made the observation many years ago, is one of the most direct ways to reach people, to reach their hearts, to help them make sense of the world they're in, and then hopefully drive them to actions that can make them feel part of a solution instead of being part of a problem. I think that's the moment we're in.
Yeah. I mean, one of the, you had been talking to Participant Media, the Jeff Skoll production company has some similarities to Alex's company, and that deal wound up not happening. Unfortunately, Participant shut down back in 2024. Curious to hear what kind of lessons you might have learned from that experience, how you brought that experience to the deal that you did with Alex.
We learned a lot about the film industry.
Yeah.
It was an 18-month due diligence process.
Okay.
We learned what not to do. We learned what we want to do, because Participant began with a fantastic engagement of its audiences around action and issues. That model still is a good model. Yeah. The good news about Jigsaw is we're small, we're nimble, yeah, and we're bold. We're not afraid, and we have a lot of problems to solve here. But if not us, then who? So, getting back to the distribution and the kind of the broader landscape for documentaries, and I'll actually say documentaries because there are a lot of films being made these days that are sort of marketed as documentaries, but when the subject funds the documentary, it's not a documentary.
Correct,
it's
something. A commercial, yeah.
I've watched some of these, especially the sports ones. They can be entertaining, but they're not documentaries.
Some commercials are entertaining too.
Right. So, as a maker of films with clear editorial independence, I would say fierce editorial independence that comes through loud and clear on a lot of these, how do you navigate this from a business standpoint? Are you banging your head against the wall? How frustrating is it to kind of see all this money going into these kinds of things that are in so many ways the antithesis of the kind of independence that you built your career on?
Well, it's difficult, and it's difficult because you're competing in the marketplace with stories that have access because the subjects are controlling the editorial content, and yet, because particularly in terms of celebrity profiles, they're very, very famous people and they draw a lot of eyeballs. Obviously, that's the kind of Faustian bargain that's being made with streamers and filmmakers and subjects in order to do that. But at the end of the day, access isn't everything, and there are different ways to tell a story. I'm doing a film, we can get to it later, about Elon Musk. At the moment, I don't have any access, but it's not stopping me from making the movie. Right. And I think the point is, so long as you're invested in good storytelling, and you're telling stories that are powerful in ways that allow everybody to come to them. In other words, people who don't agree with your point of view might come to them because it's a really great story. So the way to defeat the problem, or the way to overcome the problem, as you pointed it out, is to tell great stories that are exciting, that are fun to watch, that are dramatic, and are unafraid. Because at the end of the day, I think also, most audiences too, at some point, are getting tired of the same, because there's a kind of sameness to those celebrity profiles. You start out with 10 people who say, oh, so-and-so was really great. No, they were really, really great. No, they were really, really,
I disagree.
Really great.
They're incredibly great.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you start, they were born on such and such a date, you go through the end of their life, and then you have the same celebrities at the end saying, oh, they were really, really, really great. And then click to the next celebrity profile. That's boring to my mind. So, and I think getting back to what we were talking about in terms of distribution, if you have interesting filmmakers who are tackling subjects in powerful ways, audiences will come to watch those stories.
So let's talk about the Elon Musk project. I know it's a ways off, but curious to hear what you can share with our audience about this, other than the fact that Elon has not yet agreed to talk to you.
I mean, I have announced the film, and upon the announcement of the film, Elon Musk tweeted, and his tweet was, "Gibney is a douche."
It's a good start.
Some may or may not agree with that, but my tweet back was, "Douche." Since then, I haven't heard from him, but I can say that the film, will be a kind of an epic film. It's going to see the light of day late summer next year, in theatrical form, and will ultimately make its way to HBO in a kind of more multi-part form. But it's going to be good. It's going to be epic, and it's going to be very entertaining. I can't say too much about it because it's unfair, because the film is being made, and that's to say that the point of view I develops over time by talking to a lot of people. It's not something you prejudge. So it's a process of discovery. I can say that I've just finished a film that seems particularly relevant to this moment in time about Salman Rushdie. And the film is about somebody who suffered a very violent political attack, who just barely managed to survive. But the film is about his recovery, going from an act of hate to a place of love without sacrificing his principles, which in this moment in time seems a pretty powerful story.
Very powerful, yeah. That will be a fascinating project. It's hard to think of a person whose life has just been more dramatic than Salman Rushdie's. I mean, the number of things that he has lived through, it just kind of takes your breath away. So excited about that. Can I ask you one more question about the Elon project? Feel free to say no. But is it going to, and this may fall into the category of I don't know yet because I'm still talking to people, but is it going to be his whole life? Is it going to be a part of his life? Are you going to choose a part to focus on?
Where do you see the movie?
Okay, fair enough. I had to ask, Okay, so Wendy, I'd love to come back to you to talk about something that you've recently launched that I'm really, really curious to hear more about, AGOG, the Immersive Media Institute. As I understand it, the purpose of AGOG is to tell immersive stories with social impact, especially related to climate, but including other things, using kind of VR, XR technology. So tell us a little bit about the mission for AGOG.
Well, this is a horizon. This is a technology that's coming so quickly. And we realized that was going to happen. We realized it was going to be developed for entertainment, and I fully expect it will be integrated eventually into how we consume media. But we wanted nonprofits to have excellent tools also. And we wanted the tools that were developed to be inclusive of people of many backgrounds and not to belong to an elite. So we are in that experimental phase right now, working with lots of partners. Those clunky headsets, if you've ever had an experience of those, will soon be replaced by a nice pair of glasses. So that won't be a problem. We're understanding what it's like for people to be in these immersive spaces, because like film, but even more intensively than film, reaches people's emotions. It reaches their sense of reality, and it changes their sense of empathy for the subject that they're experiencing. We're also discovering that there are parameters around where people are happy in virtual reality or extended reality, that the human body disorients after a while. So maybe there's an optimal package that we can help to develop that people can use for social good, of course. But maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes. Maybe someday there'll be a product from Jigsaw that you can download for your glasses that will give you a taste of, let's say, Salman Rushdie, and the film that then you could go and access. I saw the rough cut of this film, by the way. I was so moved. It's so personal, and it's so appropriate for this time, and really speaks to this moment we're in of how do we get past conflict, pain, disaster, really the worst possible assault against a human being that you could imagine. How do you find that place of resolution and love and empathy? That's what it's all about now. I think that's the task in front of us, however we do it. Salman Rushdie says in the film that we're in this frontier place, and it's a very indistinct line. It's blurred, it's moral, it's amoral. We don't know where it is in technology, right? It's all rushing at us, politics, social change, technology. And he asks, what will be the spirit of this frontier? That's what we want to address.
It's extraordinary how it overlaps with the conversation that we're unfortunately having right now. So can you tell us just a little bit more about just the tech piece of this? You touched on it a few times in that answer, but everybody's been trying the clunky headsets. I mean, it's just like, guys, no, nobody wants it. It's
Let me help you fix
Meta,
that.
Apple, I mean, they've all pretty much failed. The glasses, more success. The Meta glasses with SR Luxottica that they've partnered with. I assume that you're kind of pretty familiar with what's coming down the pike here. Curious to hear what you might be able to share about, timing, if there's anything going on that front that you really feel is really promising for greater adoption based on just literally like a lighter thing to put on your head.
Oh, no, the people working at the front edge of this are already past the headsets.
Yeah.
The glasses are here. It's a matter of how they get marketed and how they come to you.
Yeah.
And I think also virtual reality is, it's pretty niche right now, but this year at the film festival here in Tribeca, we had a whole track of entertainment that was virtual reality. It was using the headset still, but I spent 15 minutes in the Ukraine in someone's home, and it was springtime, and there were flowers out in the fields, and I could touch things, and I could be there. And then the seasons changed. There was different food on the table. The cat had a blanket. There were all these things. I could walk around in a room. It was a physical room. And then, of course, being Ukraine, there was a bombing. Right. And the place blew up, and everything was around me went away. The idea was to say, what does that feel like to be in your home in the country in Ukraine? Right. And the first question I asked, and everybody else asked, where's the cat? Where's the cat? What happened to the cat? Because you were petting the cat. The cat was real. The cat was okay. The cat was bandaged. But this is the kind of experience that even the Tribeca Film Festival is now going to incorporate into that media experience of what is film, what is it to be participating in something, not just watching it.
Thank you. Alex, back to you on, I'd love to hear the story of a recent film that you made called The BB Files about Benjamin Netanyahu's administration. It's a story about corruption in his government, his particular administration. Wasn't really about the Gaza war at all, but...
well, yeah, it led to the Gaza war. I mean, anyway, go.
Was never the, I mean, you were trying to sell it at the time where that was, as I understand it anyway, part of the issue of the difficulty of the distribution. If that's incorrect, please correct me. But curious to hear about that story of that film and kind of what that says about where we are when it comes to distributing these kinds of films that are, that contain conversations and subject matter that is controversial.
Yeah. So just to review for people, I mean, the BB Files was a film that was produced by me, directed by a very talented woman named Alexis Bloom. And at the center of that film are a number of about 1,000 hours of videotapes that were leaked to me, which were police interrogations of Bibi Netanyahu, his wife Sarah, his son Yair, and many, many other people, including Arnon Milchan and so forth and so on, all related to an investigation into fundamental corruption by Netanyahu. And ultimately, the film uses those tapes to show how, in order to elude being held to account for this investigation, Netanyahu began to challenge the role of the judiciary. Sound familiar? To form a cabinet that was increasingly conservative, to essentially try to embark on what would become, by his dalliance, and let's remember that he sort of played with Hamas just before the October 7 attack. After that, then his sort of outrageously elongated assault, and you can't even really call it a war on Gaza, but the point was to take that. It was a story about corruption leading to permanent war in order to avoid that corruption. 5 years ago, there would have been a bidding war for this film. And indeed, we took it as a rough cut to the Toronto Film Festival. There was going to be a big piece at NBC News. It was canceled at the last minute because those in charge of the department decided that it would offend Netanyahu, even though these issues that were being discussed in the film were being discussed every day in Israel. So it raised an issue of like, what's happening if you can't release a film like that? And ultimately in this country, it's been seen on various channels and will continue to be seen around the world. But in this country, so far, it's been limited to a very small website called jolt.film. Yep. And people can still see it there. Soon, I think it's going to expand, probably in November, to a few other download tone sites. But the problem was that you have an important film with unique material which sheds light on one of the most important and appalling assaults in our time, that is being avoided by gatekeepers because there's an aversion to offend instead of an enthusiasm to inform. So that really raised, it's one of the things that made us start talking about, distribution, because there needs to be a way of both taking from new forms vis-a-vis social media promotion, influencer promotion, but also old forms in terms of independent theatrical release and combining them in interesting ways like bookshop.org is doing, a mail order system so you can receive books, but it's also benefiting local bookshops. So there is a tremendous need now for people to be brought together in a kind of sacred space where they converse over a film that is intended to provoke, inform, and engage, but is being held back by gatekeepers who don't want to offend. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No.
It's a super important thing, and it was really, honestly, very surprising to me that a film like that didn't get more attention.
So, does it answer primarily about content and distribution and the state of the discourse around those things and how that can create difficulty for distribution in controversial films? But I wanted to ask you a question about your approach to persuasion as a filmmaker. You recently gave a quote that really jumped out to me. Whether we make documentary films or we tell human stories that are scripted, you don't have to go at it with an arrow. You can tack your way toward the goal and bring people with you. And that also seems like a very relevant and important observation and goal right now. So I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about how you think about persuasion when you're putting together the finished product of your films.
Well, in a way, I don't always think about persuasion. I think about drama. Because often people come to me with issues, and they say, "Wouldn't it be important to make a film about this issue?" I say, "Well, what's the story?" Because that's how we learn. We learn by investing in stories, and stories are complex. Stories, on the one hand, can be very simple in terms of a basic plot, but very complex around the edges in terms of our human emotions and goals. And my goal in storytelling, particularly on controversial topics, is to engage the drama and to create, therefore, a kind of a sacred space. In a documentary context, there was also another, I've always been guided by the line by Marcel Ophuls, a hero of mine who did this film, The Sorrow and the Pity, many years ago, which was one of my great influences. He used to say, "I always have a point of view. The trick is showing how hard it is to come to that point of view." And that's what lets everybody in.
Yeah.
Of course, the other
quote,
the other light by which I steer some of these stories is there's a quip by Stanley Kubrick where he said, figuring out what you want to say is relatively easy. It's hiding it that's hard.
Right.
By which I mean engaging in a story that has its own logic, that lets people in who don't maybe even care about the subject you're talking about, but are compelled by the story. And that allows, like I keep coming back to this notion of film as a kind of sacred space where people can enjoy it and talk about it and share it, even though they may disagree about some fundamental propositions in it.
Great, thank you. We've just got a couple minutes left. I would love to close on a question about AI. Wendy, let's start with you. It's helpful these days to just hear how people are using it. I think people can both get tips from that. Oh, let me try that tool, or I hadn't thought about it that way. So curious to hear, maybe a GOG is a way into this, but really any way you want to answer it. How are you using AI? How do you envision using it in the future?
There's so much out there about AI right now, and my husband, of course, has written these books, and sometimes I'll ask him a question, he'll say, "That's on page 50, we talked about that." I'm kind of on the fence about it, to be very honest with you. I understand the utility. I also understand the dangers. And I'm troubled by the inevitability of such a technology, as if we were to go build the first nuclear reactors at scale and build them all over the world without considering the consequences of that or the implications of that. The AI data centers that are being built right now at a pace how are they being powered? They're massive, right? We're using dirty energy to power these things when we're in the middle of an energy revolution. What's going on, right? The water use. The data centers in Texas and Arizona are using water that's scarce on a planet where this is a very important resource for all of us. So I'm very troubled by this inevitable expectation that this should be everything for everyone. When you think it's a tablespoon of water for every query and 2 cups of water every time you get a drawing, it begins to calculate into something that's a bit monstrous, really. So I'm very much on the fence about it. How will it be used? It's hard to say. It's moving so quickly and without many guardrails as far as I can see. I think in the creative process, the human hand is incredibly important here. Yeah. We're making it for people, and we're making it for people who have real senses of smell and taste and hearing and feeling. And you're asking a machine that's algorithmic to satisfy that. There's something mismatched there to me.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel inevitable, and yet the last session here was John Haidt, whose work has rolled back a lot of what felt inevitable about phones and social media and teens, and so not even the most powerful currents in tech are not necessarily irreversible, so it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Alex, to you, do you imagine using, or are you already using any of this technology in your filmmaking? Do you expect to?
We do, but we also approach it with extreme suspicion. In some cases, and you know, AI is the very subject of the films that we're dealing with. And you know, what you're dealing with is processing power, if you want to boil it down to its most fundamental level. And sometimes, in order to be able to engage with that subject, you have to engage with the material. And there are efficiencies to be had, but we don't use it in terms of the creative process.
Okay.
Because that is to say, in terms of the story telling process. Sometimes there are efficiencies to be had in processing power to be able to render something in real time.
Summarize hours of tape or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay. That is actually our time. Thank you so much for a fascinating conversation. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.